in this screencast we are going to display uh, we are going to show a demo on how to deploy a Flask web app to Azure web services along with and also how to build a CICD pipeline using GitHub Actions and also Azure Devops. So let's get started. So to start with, we need a GitHub account and we have to create a GitHub repo for that. So I have already created a GitHub GitHub repo in my personal GitHub account. You can see that repo over here, and also I have added my SSH keys to my GitHub account for communicating with the Azure Cloud Cell. So here you can see I have opened one Azure Cloud Cell in the Azure portal, and I have already configured my SSH keys to this. So and also I have cloned my project here, so you can see Udacity CICD project. So let's go into that project, and we can see all the files present over here. Now before starting, we need to create a virtual environment for all our installations. I have already created the Python based virtual environment, so let's activate that. Now as we have activated, the first step is to test the continuous integration in GitHub Actions. So here I have already configured my GitHub Actions. Here as you can see, we have a GitHub workflows, and in that I have created a Python app.yml. So whenever there is a push to this repo, this particular GitHub action will get triggered. So let's see that in action. So I am just going to change um, one code. So let me change something in the readme file. So let me open the readme. um, and here I can just add one extra line. So and I can just do a git commit and do a git push. So whenever I'm doing git push, it will get the code will get pushed to my remote repository, and the GitHub action will get triggered. So let's see that. So now we can see we have triggered the GitHub CI in action. Now the continuous integration is running, and it will finish in some time. So let's wait for that. Meanwhile, we can see the next step is to build one Flask app and deploy that to Azure app services. So I have already copied the starter code, Flask starter code, from the Udacity provided repository, and you can see all the files are present over here. So here we have Boston Housing Prediction.joblib, which is a pre-trained model to predict the house prices. I have also created I have also have that make predict Azure app.cell, which is the Azure app prediction. Make predict.cell, which is our local test, and we have the make file, the requirements.txt, uh, and all those other required files. So let's test this app locally now. So what we can do is we can run the python app.py, which will start our Flask app, and we can go to another cloud cell to see if the app is returning us the output. So now the app is running. So what we can do is we can go and run this make prediction.sh. So this is for our local, and it is returning the prediction. Now the app is working locally. So what we can do as a next step is we can try to deploy it to the Azure web services, Azure app service, and see it. So because Azure app to spin it up, it will take some time. So I have already deployed the Azure Devops web app, and which is in running mode. You can see that it's also running perfectly fine. So The command for creating the web app is it's there in my GitHub, and you can also see that Python based GitHub action has completed successfully. So our CI workflow is working as expected, and here in the README I have given how to make all the steps. So here, if you go down, you can see that this is the script that we use. This is the command that we use to create a web app. So I have already done that and it's running. So let's now build the uh, Azure DevOps pipeline. So for that, we first need Azure DevOps. Need to create a Azure DevOps organization. So I have already created a Azure DevOps organization. Udacity CICD project is the project in that. So I have already created the project. So let's go to the project and see what is there. So before creating a pipeline, we have to, you know, start. We have to start creating a service connection. So service connection to our Azure app service. So I have already done that because for that we need to provide all the details. So that is already done. Once that is done, you can go ahead and create a pipeline. So once you create a new pipeline, it will ask you for the GitHub name, the bucket name. Sorry, not the bucket name, the repository name. And once it you can select this option, Python to Linux web app on Azure, and it will actually go ahead and check for the subscription, and then it will ask you to verify your details. And you can actually validate and configure. So here we have already configured. Now we can see that we are getting one new YAML file, Azure pipelines 1.yaml, and we can do a save and run, so it will automatically trigger the run and deployment. So now, as I have already created a pipeline before, so this pipeline as you can see that and it's already configured. So previously I already ran this pipeline, and so now what we can do, now we can see that as we change the readme file before, so this pipeline has triggered and it's running. It will take some time to run, at least around 15 minutes. So for the essence of time, I'm not going to execute it, but as in the essence, you, if you change anything in your git repo, for example, you can change something in this web page also, and the automatic deployment will happen and the changes will reflect over here. So that's how it is. Now let's see if our Azure DevOps web app has successfully deployed. So for that, what we can do is we can run the make predict Azure app.sh, and it should return us the correct JSON payload. So it has returned us the correct prediction, and we can see the web app log using this tail command. So once the log is coming up, we can go to the next step, which is the load test. So in my local, I have already started the locust app, which is running. So here my locust is already running, and it is expecting accepting all the connections. So if I go ahead to the locust UI, here I can do a new test for 10 users and spawn rate, let's say for 2, and we can start swarm it, and we can see all the requests coming in to our web app, and we can also see the charts. Okay, the response time and the total requests per second, it's going up, and the number of users. Okay, so that's how we can actually deploy Azure web app to our Azure portal using various solutions. So here we also tested GitHub Actions and also Azure DevOps pipeline. Now our pipeline, as you can see, it's still executing, still in execution mode, but it will definitely get executed as I have done it before. So if you see, if you go ahead and check some other other runs, so you can see that first it will build, and then it will deploy the web app. So if you see and check the commit here, we have actually removed the Azure app from our HTML to prediction home, and that's what it is showing in my web page. So that's all for today's screencast. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.